What's lurking in the foods that we eat? Do we truly understand how to read food labels and understand what's truly good for us? When there's greenwashing terms such as heart healthy, fortified, how do we know that that truly serves our best interests nutritionally? How do we know how to decipher what's in these foods that we consume? I'm Jackie Elmer. Grab my guide over at lowertoxiclife.com. So every day we're faced with food choices, right? What are we going to consume on a daily basis? What's going to feed our bodies, give us great nutritional support, and appease our taste buds as well? I just want to share with you on today's video some ideas of what to look for as you go through the grocery store, even as you're out eating in restaurants, etc. We're going to cover some of those things that you want to watch out for, and make sure you do grab my guide for grocery shopping and how to best set yourself up for success and learn to read those labels. Go to lowertoxiclife.com. So let's unpack some of these different things that we see quite often on food labels and the ingredients that are contained in our most popular foods that we consume on a regular basis. Now, most of us know that labeling can be extremely complicated and misleading. And a lot of those terms are marketing terms and really aren't truly backed by any scientific data, nor are they regulated by, here in the United States, the FDA or any big regulatory bodies in a lot of different countries. So we don't truly know if that serves us. So I just want to give you some things to watch for and to watch out for. Now, again, I live in the United States, so I'm speaking mostly from my own experience. I know the UK, for example, is a lot stricter with what they allow in a lot of their ingredients and their labeling. So depending on where you are in the world, just go research it for yourself. Now, these are some examples that you'll see right here on the screen: natural, heart healthy, fortified, gluten-free. Now, gluten-free is a great term, and it's important, especially if you have celiac disease or you are gluten sensitive, like I am. I am not celiac, but I can definitely tell a difference in my inflammation, even my water retention, that little bulge around the belly. Some of those things can affect me negatively when I've indulged in gluten. But is gluten-free, as a marketing term, necessarily better for you? Cage-free, free range, grass-fed, low-fat, or fat-free. These are all things that we want to watch out for as we're shopping. Now, just an example, and I mentioned this, there are currently no standards on the books for the label natural, except when it's used on meat and poultry products, at least here in the US. The USDA guidelines state that a natural meat and poultry products can only undergo a certain level of minimal processing. They can't be shot up with artificial colors or flavors, no preservatives, no artificial ingredients. However, natural foods aren't necessarily sustainable. They aren't necessarily organic. And in the idea or the concept of meat and meat products, they aren't necessarily humanely raised or free of hormones and antibiotics. So you want to really be careful about natural. I've also shared before, natural flavorings is often a chemical toxic soup because there's no regulations truly behind what goes into those natural flavorings. Are they GRAS, which means generally regarded as safe? Yes, they are. But again, as we talk very often about the toxic soup that we live in, we want to compare and see what's in those labels and ideally reduce our exposure to as many as possible. Gluten-free, I mentioned this already. Yes, it can be free of gluten, but is it still high on the glycemic level? Can it still be inflammatory? Yes, in many cases it can. And when gluten-free came on the scene, or when celiac became diagnosable and there's such a rise, that all of a sudden we saw this huge influx of marketing terms labeled gluten-free. I am personally not a fan of most gluten-free products because when I look at them, very often they have labels that contain this popcorn, for instance, is gluten-free. but it doesn't necessarily contain all the best ingredients for my body or your body. So be careful with gluten-free as well. Still ask yourself, is this still nutritionally sound? Is it still going to serve me in the best way possible? And then cage-free and free range. Birds were raised out of cages. That doesn't mean they ever spend a day out in the natural sunlight. They might have been raised indoors on concrete slabs, but they weren't in a cage. Look for pasture raised when it comes to your eggs, your meat, your poultry, etc. These are some different things to avoid. And again, if you go to lowertoxiclife.com and you grab my guide, you will get my grocery list that contains some sustainable ways, something you can print out and take with you to the grocery store so that you have that quick reference. Avoid terms like low fat and no fat. The reason is because so often chemical ingredients have been added to enhance the flavor. You want to avoid those products that have had RBGH added to them or anything like that. So look for those labels that say they are free of any of these added chemicals. High fructose corn syrup, that's on one of my top 5. I avoid high fructose corn syrup at all costs. I have a separate video specifically on high fructose corn syrup and why you want to avoid this. Natural flavoring, I already covered that. Food colors and dyes, especially among children. We know that very often when their diet is altered dramatically, diagnoses such as ADD, ADHD also very often come down with those. Now, as I say, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a scientist, but I am a researcher and I'm a biohacker. And you can go to citations.lowertoxiclife.com and just search that page for exactly what you're looking for. Seed oils. I have another video specifically on seed oils. There's a lot of controversy. If you go to Google and you Google that, again, you're going to find some studies that say that seed oils are fine. Many studies show that seed oils are not. And again, a little bit of seed oil in a very small amount, not such a bad thing. But when seed oils start getting added so often to our most common foods, over time that can add up. Most highly processed foods contain seed oils. Seed oils, the biggest problem with them is the way that they're processed, the high heat level that they have to go through, and the additives that are done in the processing of seed oils and what that leaves behind. So again, my rule of thumb is if I can get olive oil, if I can get almond oil, if I can get avocado oil, coconut oil, if I can get one of the healthier oils, why not opt for that? I have my rule of 5 philosophy. I try to purchase only those products with 5 or less ingredients, words that I can pronounce and know, and ideally that I could actually purchase in my grocery store and make that product at home if I wanted to. And then what you do want to do is you want to begin to shop for those whole foods that are in their original form with minimal additives or processing. You want to have healthy fats such as avocados, olives, coconut, and as well as the oils of those products as well, and healthy seeds and nuts, flax, chia seeds, hemp seeds, healthy nuts, walnuts, almonds, Brazil nuts, and then lean, sustainably raised, if possible, animal proteins. Slow carbs. What are slow carbs? Slow carbs are those vegetables and minimal fruits that are, again, in their raw, natural form and organic as much as possible. And then select grains if you desire. For me, quinoa, I can do a little bit of quinoa. I'll do beans occasionally, but even I try to steer free from grains as much as possible. I indulge occasionally, but as I've said before, I focus on 80-20 or 90-10, often in my case. Do you want to still have fun with your foods? Absolutely. Nothing wrong with that. So I know a confused mind says no. Pick 1 or 2 things at a time. Grab that grocery list, go shopping, begin to really read the labels. Look at how many ingredients are in this particular food. Begin to read the ingredients and the labels of the foods that you're buying and ask yourself, can I get a better option if I just keep exploring the grocery store. Make sure you're subscribed like all the cool people are so you don't miss that video on specifically high fructose corn syrup, gluten-free, or any of those other greenwashing, misleading labels. I'm Jackie Elmer, lowertoxiclife.com.